I never diss my own mama just to get recognition. So take a second, listen before you think this record is dissing, and put yourself in my position. Just try to envision witnessing your mama popping prescription pills in the kitchen, bitching that someone's always going through or a person shit's missing.
Proud of yourself?
Welcome to the Dr. DC podcast. My name is Colin, and next to me is the doctor himself.
Next to me?
Next to me.
So let's take that again.
It's like I have braces or something.
Yeah.
I do not.
Next to me.
And as always, we're joined by our producer, Richard. And each week we talk about the weird and wonderful world of DC comics and movies while fielding questions from listeners like you. And not like Richard.
Oh, wait.
Well, I saw a superhero last night. He was black. He said, "This is for the streets. Black Lightning's back."
Sorry, I'm just
Great
super
show.
into Black Lightning
Great
right now.
I'm nearly caught up.
Yeah. Out of 5 episodes, how many episodes have you watched?
4.
I thought you said you were 3 behind.
Yeah, I watched 2 today while I was doing my taxes.
Oh.
That's how easy your taxes are to do. You can watch a TV show.
Well,
I am a doctor after all.
I just plug in the numbers and do the software.
You just whip the tax boy.
Yeah. Is that what you guys do? You all have a tax boy, right?
And in news, Michael Bay eyeing Lobo film.
Boo.
Well,
No. What you mean is boom. Everything's going to
Oh, yeah.
blow up.
Boo.
well, yeah. I mean, explosions
got it.
and in a weird way, if this ends up being true, it might actually be a good fit.
The greatest explosion of all time.
Like Lobo is a character that was created as like a response to like the hyper violent characters like Wolverine and stuff like that, and he's meant to be like a pastiche of that sort of like hyper violence. He has like the biker jacket, and you know he's a bad bastitch, and he's like blowing shit up, and he's
Sorry,
a
a bad what?
He says bastitch because they couldn't write bastard in comic books, so he has his own sort of like lexicon that you're meant to read into. But in a weird way, if you're trying to capture that like extreme, like early 90s, late 80s, badass explodey vibe,
Then you drink a Mountain Dew, Code Blue.
maybe Michael...
Step into a Slim Jim.
Brother! But maybe Michael Bay is the person you get for that.
Yeah, but
He certainly doesn't have like a progressive... approach to
bone in his
filmmaking
body
or anything like that, and that's kind of Lobo. But the trick would be, could you as a filmmaker hire, or like as a producer, hire Michael Bay because you know he can handle the explosions and like that kind of side of it, but convince Michael Bay that you're not making a movie that's making fun of the type of movie that he makes.
I mean, that would just be genius.
If you
producing.
could do that, I think that it's like a perfect idea. But if
Like a
they're
Deadpool kind of thing where it breaks that fourth wall?
No, not quite like that. But what I mean is like that the very idea of hiring Michael Bay to do this movie is itself the parody. So if you could like get him to do it, but not let him in on the joke, that would be the ideal scenario, I think.
So here's a real question. Who would play Lobo?
Oh, that I have no idea.
Besides, obviously, who we want to play Lobo.
Well, I mean, if he wasn't Aquaman, Jason Momoa would be like the perfect physical specimen for Lobo.
Oh, I was going to say, since clearly I'm not getting the Ragman role, I could just take this one.
Because it's just transferable.
You're maybe a little bit the wrong...
What are you trying to say?
You're just wrong for it.
How so?
It's like from like a...
Like in every way.
in every
Well,
way.
like Jason Momoa's 6'4". I'm 6'4".
Yeah, but like...
And then what?
Every way.
Yeah, and then everything else.
He's only like 230, 240. I'm like 2.
Yeah, because it's all...
I could put on that and just like do it.
Yeah.
All right, DC execs, you have Colin's word that he could do it. He swears.
You know who I thought could have done it, but he's already...
Pretty please let him.
He's already, obviously, in the DC EU, is Joe Manganiello.
Yeah, he probably could have. Yeah, you just need someone like giant and like...
The Rock? No, he's too fun.
Well, he's also Black Adam.
Yeah, God, they were taking all the good muscly dudes.
This guy, do you know, if he could act and he wasn't like 57, get like Mick Foley, get like Mankind. If this movie was being made 10 years ago, get Mick Foley to play Lobo. That would be fucking amazing.
Okay. Have you seen him lately, though? He kind of looks hipstery. It's weird.
Yeah, he does.
It's super weird. What about Channing Tatum?
No.
No?
He's too pretty, too like light-hearted. Lobo's got to be like a guy that looks like he's comfortable in the grime.
What if we just fight clubbed Zac Efron's face up like they did with Jared Leto and then use him?
Sorry, you're advocating just like violence
I'm just
against
saying,
an
like,
actual human being.
I'm saying like it's like when you get a new pair of sneakers and
You know they
you
do
don't
like-
want
Gotta
to be
break them in.
yeah, scuff them up a little bit.
What about Charlie Hunnam?
No,
No, he'd be better Green Arrow.
I know, but it's not like I'm not into the whole like Robin Hood arrow. Like,
I know, but Charlie Hunnam's not like Jason Momoa looks like he.
I
would
know
just
it's.
fuck
I know that's
somebody
who
up.
we
You know what
want.
I mean?
know
Like,
it's who we want.
I can't think of another actor who looks as like potentially dangerous yet somehow lovable. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
it's got to.
It's like something in there.
guys, I got it. I'm telling you, I
It's
can
not
do
you,
this.
man.
I can do this.
Anyways, let's move on.
Shazam plot synopsis released.
Sorry, what?
Or whatever.
Oh,
Shazam
synopsis.
synopsis.
Yeah,
I'm really
I
glad.
said
That,
synopsis.
I'm glad that you're so high energy. It brings like a really good dynamic. To the show.
I feel like you guys are, like based on everything that you said about all these other actors, you're saying that I'm like too skinny and too pretty to like scuff it up.
Yes,
I can scuff it
I never
up.
said you were too pretty.
I can scuff it up.
I did.
I can scuff it up.
Yeah, you could
I can
scuff it up.
Prove it to us, and then maybe we'll get you in the room with the DC execs because we can do that.
Start acting.
So do you guys want
Build
to
up
get
your
onto
body.
this next part of the news or?
Oh, now you want?
Yeah,
to
it's
All right.
funny.
Yeah, so Shazam's plot synopsis got revealed basically.
Some hilarious stuff inside of it.
Yeah, so
Synopsis.
it confirms Billy
Peppermint
Batson
synopsis.
is quote unquote a streetwise like 14-year-old. He gets the powers of the wizard to turn into Shazam, and like we assume, he is sort of awestruck. He like plays with these powers. In the synopsis,
Yeah.
it's talking about how he just like tests them out because he's a kid who gets
Oh
an
yeah.
adult body and he gets like superpowers. So he tries flying and sees what he can do.
Has sex with a woman.
I hope it's not like Big.
Oh,
Because that's
yeah. That's it.
Big is a messed up movie.
It is when you really like break it down like
Yeah.
that.
I hope it's not like that. But in the superpower sense, a little like that. But then they do say that he has to get, a handle on his powers and sort of like, maybe mature a little bit in order to face the evils being harnessed by Dr. Savannah, played by Mark Strong.
Oh, sorry. Did you talk about Dr. Savannah?
Every goddamn time.
This is just
There's only
such
one
a good
way to-
shtick. I love it.
Yeah.
Dr. Savannah brings all of the ladies around.
With his milkshake to the yard.
Yeah, but he has no interest
Oh,
in
wait,
them.
no, that's the boys. That's the opposite.
Oh, wait.
But yeah, so we've got that plot synopsis. And we also know that
Does it make you excited?
it does. Because I mean, it's one thing to write something on paper. The movie could still be anything. But it looks like they're putting the emphasis on that, like, the wonder and the fun and things like that are kind of important to the character. So,
Do you feel like they're going in the right direction?
yeah, 3/4 of that is about how cool it would be to be a superhero. And then just at the end, they're like, oh, and by the way, there's a bad guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that, I think that tells you a little bit of the approach to the movie, and it feels right.
What
But
I
again,
hope for
anything
is
could
that they like play up the whole like what's a kid inside there, so he's not going to know how to be an adult, and
Yeah.
that whole side of it. There's a really great Supernatural episode where like a young like teen like high schooler gets inside one of the dudes, one of the Supernatural brothers, like his soul.
Okay.
Like they switched. Yeah, I should be more clear, I guess.
Way up
This isn't the fan fiction that you'll find on Supernatural. And it's very funny because he's just like he realizes he looks cool, but he doesn't know how to act cool in it.
Right.
And it's just like
17 again.
oh yes, like I have
Matthew Perry, Zac Efron. I know what you're talking about.
wow, I forgot that was a movie until just now.
I mean, I don't know that movie.
I don't have it on VHS, DVD, and Blu-ray.
Every format.
Yeah.
Laserdisc.
Laser.
I actually just recorded the audio and played it over while I sleep.
The Betamax
Oh, he's got to. I have it on tape for some reason.
8-track.
cassette.
Yeah. I actually have it on like the hollow like tubes like the
Oh yeah, like
Edison
the
tubes.
proto gramophone.
yeah.
Yeah, that was called the Edison tube.
You crank it on the wow, that's good. Yeah. Nice. So, I'm excited.
I'm also excited.
I actually got to see one of those in person.
Really?
Yeah, they're really cool.
That's pretty neat.
Yeah, they're really neat. My dad has a couple of cylinders too.
Really?
If we have any
He has
listeners,
nothing to play it on. But
if we have any listeners in Toronto, try and find where they're shooting. Let us know how it looks.
You know who we're talking to.
Do we know people in Toronto?
Adam lives in Toronto.
Adam
Oh,
Adam who?
Yeah. It's Dump.
But now everyone knows
Oh.
we've just outed him.
It's Toronto. It's a very big place.
Oh, they'll find him.
He's down on
That's it.
Young and
Run, Adam, run!
They're already there.
Oh my God, who's coming through the door?
There's a black car outside.
Adam behind you. Run! He's gonna get real freaked.
So Martian Manhunter is coming home.
Yeah. So Martian Manhunter's
He
kind
came
of been
back.
He's kind of just been absent. Like after his
Like a really good
Enough that-
stepfather.
But
Jesus. After his
Or a
solo,
bad regular
No.
I could tell you some stories.
You mean
After-
the best kind of regular father?
No. After his solo series, he's just kind of like fallen off the map. Like nothing happened to him. He wasn't dead or anything like that, but he's just kind of been absent. And he hasn't been like a
I hope that
charter
doesn't
member.
happen to Tim Baker. Hey Rosetta breaks up. He goes on a solo tour and then he just disappears. For
To all of our Canadian listeners, Tim Baker
does
is a
that
musician
even
from the
mean?
band Hey Rosetta, which is a Canadian band from Newfoundland.
Completely.
Would you call it Newfoundland?
Yeah.
It's called Newfoundland.
Yeah, but it's not how it's written. It was the Newfoundland.
Don't look to me to help. You derailed the thing I was talking about. I'm not helping you.
This
No,
is
no.
apples and oranges. You know he's wrong.
At any rate,
Aquaman.
again, just like tangents.
Now he's coming for your shit.
Yeah.
Martian Manhunter, after a bit of an absence, showed up again in Dark Knight's Metal number 5. So
Classic Dr. DC.
he's,
blank.
so
We'll
if
be
you've been
right back after this next derailment.
if you've been missing Martian Manhunter, he's back. And I think it might be an indication that maybe Scott Snyder, who's been writing Metal and is going to be taking over the Justice League book, maybe he'll bring Martian Manhunter back into the main roster of the team because he hasn't been since the New 52, basically. So that's kind of the crux of that little piece.
Speaking of Zack Snyder, he was fired from Justice League.
That's not. Well, I was actually talking about Scott Snyder before, but different, completely.
Speaking of Snyder's.
Aren't they brothers?
No.
Surprisingly not.
Yeah. So this has been the thing. This has been the.
Two brothers.
Hang on.
Okay, sorry.
This has been the thing for the last couple of weeks, is that. Do you remember, Colin, like back months before Justice League came out, we talked about how Zack Snyder, who was the original director on it, stepped down because of like personal family tragedy.
No.
Okay, his kid killed themselves, and then he stepped down from the movie, and then they brought in Joss Whedon to write, reshoot scenes,
To weed it up.
and weeden it up and basically take it over. What we're since learning is that Zack Snyder was actually fired from Justice League months earlier than that. And
no one told him?
no, he knew,
Oh.
but he wasn't saying anything just to be professional. But it kind of, I don't want to come out and say this, but it kind of looks like Warner Brothers used that like
Terrible tragedy?
as like a PR move to cover up that they had just summarily fired him.
Dick move, WB.
Yeah. So, just add that on like the flaming garbage fire that was post-production on Justice League. There were reports that there was a quote unquote unwatchable first cut of Justice League that Zack Snyder had made. But what they don't say is, was it unwatchable because it was bad, or was it unwatchable because Warner Brothers wanted a funny Avengers movie and that wasn't what he made? Or like, we don't really know the details of that.
Are we done with this yet? Can you stop?
No,
But-
I like making you uncomfortable.
But super uncomfortable.
Richard's taking pictures. But since this little tidbit has come out, there have also been some like revelations about scenes that were in Snyder's version of Justice League that didn't make it into the movie. So one in particular that might have made a couple of things make more sense. Do you remember when they when Superman comes back and they're all standing in the park there, and then Cyborg's armor starts acting up and he shoots at Superman. He says he can't control it.
Yeah.
Kind of comes out of nowhere.
Yeah. Out of completely nowhere.
Apparently, in the Snyder version of the script, when right as Cyborg is he's like interfacing with that Kryptonian device and the mother box is falling.
Yeah.
Apparently, in that moment, Cyborg gets a nightmare vision like Batman did in Batman v Superman. And in that vision, he sees Darkseid. He sees it going wrong. He sees like Superman as the villain, all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And then when Superman comes back and then they're all out in the park, because his armor had just experienced that, he sees Superman as a threat and the armor starts
that would have made a lot more sense.
Would have made a ton more sense. That's just a very tiny example, but apparently there were like a few things like that that would have totally changed the film. And not only that, but just the existence of another nightmare scene and seeing Darkseid and seeing that like potential vision of the future would have tied back to Batman v Superman and made that scene mean something. Because as it stands right now, it's like just a weird sidebar now because Justice League never resolved it. So there were like things like that. But basically, like the long and the short of it is that some people probably guessed this anyway. But yeah, Zack Snyder was fired. Warner Brothers decided they wanted something different, but they decided it after principal photography, and they fired him. And we know what happened after that. Post-production kind of hacked that movie to bits. But that's essentially what that bit of news is.
Well, that's too bad.
Yeah, it sucks.
I don't know.
Which is weird because they keep him around.
I mean, it sucks for a ton of reasons.
Yeah.
But I think maybe like the most heartbreaking thing is just that like
WB.
look at like what a class act then Zack Snyder was about it. That he wasn't like fuck these guys and blah, blah, blah. He was just
Well, I think because
like,
he was wrapped up in his.
he was
family
dealing with his
stuff.
own thing. But then even afterward, when he put out that what is it called, like Snow, Steam, Iron, that like short film that he did, and he released it. Even through all that, and he was just, you know, just quiet about it. He just let the movie continue, and you know,
What I don't get is why they keep him as such an integral role of like the DCU.
they don't. He's gone.
Is he completely gone now?
Yeah.
I thought it was just Justice League. No,
No,
he's completely.
he's gone.
Well, I mean, it's unfortunate about the kid thing, but I'm super happy he's gone.
I'm not.
I don't know. I feel
I
like
like Zack Snyder, and that thing he was doing was going somewhere interesting, and now we won't see it ever.
yeah,
We
but
can't even judge it because it was like a 3-chapter thing he was telling, and we didn't get the 3rd chapter. So now we'll never.
it never felt like 3 chapters to me, though. It felt like 2 chapters with some weird stuff kind of betwixt it.
I mean, Man of Steel is clearly its own movie because I don't think they knew that they wanted to do the cinematic universe yet. But Batman v Superman does not feel like it's a standalone. Like it's going somewhere.
Yeah,
and then we never got the other bit of it.
well, you got Justice League.
Well, no, but that's not the movie he made.
No, I guess, but it just feels
So
like
we never got it.
I don't know. I just never like it was fumble after fumble for me. Like I know how you feel about Man of Steel, but I never felt that way about it.
I can kind of understand some people's gripes with Batman v Superman. I 100% do not understand people who have issues with Man of Steel. I just don't get.
I just want one Superman movie that I really like, and I don't have that. I want the like Batman Begins even like version of that. Like
Batman Begins is a movie I don't like.
Okay, I know, and that of those 3 movies,
Not like I'm not trying to make this a pissing contest about
No,
whose
no, no.
movie we don't like.
No. But I think that like the Dark Knight at least, like
Great movie.
I want a Superman version like that, like if DC's going to be the gritty realistic thing,
Yeah.
give me a Superman that's more like that.
That's
like,
what Man of Steel is.
but it wasn't though, because there was so much.
That's what people didn't like about it. They said it was too gritty and realistic.
For me, it wasn't. It was trying to be gritty and realistic while putting in these like ridiculous elements. I think just give me one Superman where he doesn't fight somebody from like some fucking person from Krypton. If I just see one more version of Superman where somebody from Krypton gets fought, I'm gonna lose my mind.
Well, but then we run into the issue that Colin would bring up, which is then who the fuck does Superman fight?
I know, but
He better fight like 5 normal bad guys.
Maybe more, but yeah.
but I
Same
think that's
time.
I think that's why that's why I like Smallville, because like he didn't have control of his abilities. He didn't have like the full gambit of abilities at the time. He couldn't even fly. I liked that version of him. Like, for once, it's the one origin story you don't really get in movie form, even though they love telling origin stories for superheroes.
Yes, yeah.
It's the one you never really get is Superman's, which is kind of crazy.
I disagree. We've watched Krypton explode a lot.
Okay, but you never get that big middle part where he actually becomes Superman. It's always just like, hey, there was a planet and now he's Superman. You never really get the Smallville version.
So
where
what you want
You see
isn't an
some
origin story, it's a
Smallville
medium.
you see some Smallville in the original Superman movies. There's a Smallville.
you can't count those because those
there's
are.
a montage thing in Superman Returns. You definitely see him growing up in Man of Steel.
I don't know, but you don't get that like fumbling around with his abilities, like fighting like smaller,
dealing with puberty.
Well, but
and,
again, maybe this is because you can't spend a movie like fighting 13 other things on your way to something.
But unless you
acne
said it,
before a dance.
it's why the concept, the first season of Smallville was so
He
good.
can't even pop it. It's indestructible.
Which, by the way, this isn't in the news, but Funko just released Smallville.
I saw that.
Funko, yeah,
I saw that.
I'm really stoked about
Yeah.
that. But I didn't. I guess what I'm saying is I love Smallville. The first season of Smallville, the first 2 seasons.
First 3 even.
Yeah, when he's in high school, it's exactly what I wanted.
Well, then you're going to love this because DC announces Superman live-action prequel series called Metropolis.
Yeah, that's not.
This is a stupid idea.
Hey, remember how well Gotham?
That was
turned out?
exactly what I was going to say. Yeah.
I was going to start watching Gotham the other day, but then I didn't.
Oh,
First season
is
great.
yeah.
Is it like the detective?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then they go like, maybe the supervillain should show
So
up.
here's the real question. I think we should start a poll of what season do like Superman superheroes start supervillains start showing up in Metropolis.
Oh, I guarantee
Episode 1, they're just like, we learned this already.
No. I think you get like half a season with no supervillains, and then you get like Metallo or something in the back half of season.
Something that they don't need Superman for.
Yeah, or like Parasite or something like that. Like, the premise of this show is that it takes place before Superman's out superheroing.
Well, and
it would focus on
to jump
Lois
in,
Lane
it's
and
Lois
Lex Luthor.
Yeah. So already you kind of get the beginnings of a villain
Will you get Superman?
in Lois Lane.
Luthor is like a shady businessman.
He doesn't become a villain until
he's kind of a criminal, but he can't be a villain with
She's
it.
like-
until Superman shows
She's
up.
the untold hero of the villain world is Lois Lane.
And they already had Lois Lane and Lex Luthor a TV show. It's called Smallville.
I am all for something that focuses on Lois Lane. That's a great character, but Superman should be there.
How do you also have a show about Lois Lane and Superman's not around? Because it's not like they're drastically different in age.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, but they went to different colleges.
Yeah, but how do you have it with Lex
So
Luthor
specific.
and in Metropolis? Which means that
It's a big city, bro.
Ultimately,
it takes them a while to meet.
Ultimately, what I think my problem is with this is they're picking things that are not prequel material and trying to make prequel out of it. It's going to go the Gotham route, where people will either get impatient watching a show that's maybe quite interesting about like a reporter and investigative journalism and a corrupt businessman. That can be dynamic and interesting, especially
Isn't that
with
just
those
called 50
characters.
Shades of Grey?
But
You're not wrong.
people will get impatient with that and then be like, but we want to see Mr. Mix's Pitlick, and then they'll start throwing that shit in, but Superman's not there and the show won't make any fucking sense. It'll be the Gotham thing. Like,
and the whips and chains
my
come out.
my money, no, it's not 50 Shades. My money is on it ending up like Gotham.
You put the synopsis of both these shows side by side, and you tell me it's not the same.
I don't think he's a corrupt businessman.
Oh, he's corrupt, all right.
50 Shades of Bald.
Nice.
50 Shades of Blue. I don't know. I'll find it.
Nice.
I'll figure it out.
But yeah, I mean, I'm not into this. I'm more excited for Krypton, the prequel series that follows Superman's grandfather. But when Adam Strange goes back in time to make sure that like Krypton doesn't get destroyed too early, so that Superman can be born, so he can save the future, like that. I'm way more excited about that than I am about this Metropolis one.
Hey, you know what's really cool about Superman? All of his powers. You know where those aren't applicable?
Well,
Fucking
no.
Krypton.
I know. I'm not saying I think it's going to be the best show ever, but I'm more excited for that than I ever would be for
Was
this.
it his grandfather who was the scientist?
Well, the whole House of L are like scientists.
Okay. So,
his father Jor-El
This is
the
the house
scientist
of learned doctors.
So what I would love to see is sort of the like him building all of the things that eventually Superman will use at some point.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is Jor-El, like his father. But yes,
Yeah.
I mean, I think it's reasonable to assume that like Sag-El has some sort of impact. I mean,
Yeah.
you would hope. You're making a show about him. You better have
And do you
some
think
kind
it'll
of
be
impact.
like is Jor-El going to be like teenage years or like?
No, I the way that it looks from the trailer, Sag-El looks like he hasn't had a kid.
Oh,
Or if he has, be like an infant. Like Jor-El is not in the picture,
at
basically.
all. I just like you know how you.
Sag-El looks like he's like our age.
Here's my problem with Krypton. It's a planet we don't know a ton about
Didn't it
because
blow
it
up?
blew up. Yeah, and they've been back there and we've seen bits of it, but it's the planet we don't know a ton about.
Well, if it got blown up, there probably are a bunch of bits of it.
Definitely. We don't have a ton of the history for it to like go, oh yeah, remember that time? Oh, they're gonna do that. Or remember those characters from there? It's just like you get basically like one character that goes back in time.
But I think the only thing that maybe is the redeeming thing for this show, as opposed to something like Gotham, is that because there's this time travel, like kind of Terminator sort of plot, the show is still basically about Superman.
In the fact that,
But Superman is John Connor. You know, like they can, because he's going back in time, he's already trying to change things so that he could be like on Krypton and be like, your grandson is like, he can fucking like shoot ice out of his, or whatever.
Shoot ice out of his what?
Yeah, don't worry about it. You know what I mean? Like you can still, Gotham has to coyly be like, we don't know what Batman is because it doesn't exist yet. But in that show, they can just be like, fuck it. We'll just tell you like why Superman's important, why you're important to Superman. Like they don't have to play that like dance around like it doesn't exist.
okay.
They can kind of just go for it.
Okay.
Another DC news. They announced,
As opposed to,
I don't know, my own. Okay, so in Colin news, it's cold today. And
We'll cut this.
okay,
snowy.
edit point.
DC announces 2 new young reader imprints with powerhouse YA authors.
Yeah.
Or is it authors?
I'm proud that you said YA.
Yeah. I was expecting you to say yeah, but loudly because it's capitalized.
That's what I did.
Yeah, so
Yeah.
DC Zoom and DC Ink are going to be these 2 new imprints. Again, targeting young readers. They're going to introduce... They've already talked about introducing like a new Green Lantern who's like a kid. I think he's of like sort of East Asian descent.
Which is really interesting. I don't think they've ever had.
But it's like a
that.
brand new character. It's not like they were like, and this time Hal Jordan's from Korea, or like it's just like a brand new character with a different backstory. But basically, these like imprints, they're targeted at younger readers, and they're just new stories. There's one that I think is called like Superman takes down the Klan or something like that.
Man.
It's like, it's exactly what it sounds like. There's this new Green Lantern one. There's quite a few, and I think there's a Black Canary one. But I like it because it's trying to extend the audience. It's making new stories and getting people excited or into comics. And
do you think it'll be targeted towards like adults as well, or is it just going to be kids? You think?
I mean, like it's the YA thing is the angle, I think. So it's probably like.
So I'm gonna love it.
Pre-teens, teenagers, maybe. I would think. I don't think it's targeted too young. Like I don't think it's like kids, but like
sorry, Colin.
Middle school, that kind of age range, maybe. Yeah.
So that's cool.
Yeah, something like like Harry Potter or something like that kind of.
I'm into that. It's my jam.
Right. Well, but think of how much we love Harry Potter, and then those stories kind of aged with us. This won't exactly be like that, but imagine you start reading comic books at like an age sort of appropriate level, and then you kind of graduate to the sort of mainstream
Big boy
titles.
comics.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's big boy and girl comics.
I knew you were going to do
It's
that.
not just for boys. The Doom
Also for
Patrol
men.
to appear on Titans TV series.
Yep. So Jeff Johns tweeted a picture that he had like written
Jeff Jones.
that he had written a script.
Martian Manhunter.
That he had written a script.
This isn't a competition.
Yeah,
that he
clearly.
had written a script for an episode of that Titans TV
Do you want to get
show.
into this? Is this what we're doing?
We can definitely do it.
That he had written a script for an episode of that Titans show, and it's called
How many
Doom
times do you
Patrol.
think we can get him to do this?
I don't know. I wonder.
That he had written a script for. But basically, yeah. So the Doom Patrol will be appearing on Titans. So that's like Niles Calder, Elastigirl, Negative Man, Robot Man.
Wait, Niles Calder from Frasier?
No, that's Niles Crane.
That's the one.
That'd have been awesome.
Niles Calder, aka the Chief, member and leader of the Doom Patrol.
Daphne.
Was that you trying to do a David?
I was just like, I started and I was like, I have no idea how to.
Isn't it more like, it's like a little bit more backwards, like Daphne.
Daphne.
None of these are close.
Okay, dock it up.
No, I didn't say I could do it.
There
I'm
you
just
go. And
criticizing.
in other news.
From one doctor to another.
But yeah, so Doom Patrol might get their. I think it would be
right.
their first like live action appearance, unless I'm mistaken. But yeah,
Neat.
DC released newest teen hero, Sideways.
So cool.
yeah. So this is one of those like New Age of Heroes titles that's spinning out of Metal. So basically, this character, his name is Derek something. I can't remember his last name, but he gets powers that have sort of leached from the dark multiverse, and it allows him to basically like teleport like through the fabric of reality. He doesn't have 100% control of them, so but I think the idea is that he's young. It's almost like a Spider-Man kind of age. So he's got these powers. And
Spider-Man.
yeah, so I will admit I am not currently reading this book. I think just the first issue is it, but I haven't picked it up. But it's part of that New Age of Heroes. So yeah.
Joaquin Phoenix is in talks to play Joker in Todd Phillips' origin picture. Yes, please.
Really?
What do you mean?
I still really like Joaquin Phoenix.
You're wrong.
Really? Yeah, you're incorrect.
No.
No, he's.
He once upon a time pretended to be hip hop artist for like what, a year and a half,
Yeah.
2 years, and pulled it off.
And was a documentary.
Pretended, quote unquote. He went off the fucking deep end.
That was the documentary.
Yeah, it was the documentary.
It was. Oh.
I don't like Joaquin
Somebody's
Phoenix.
butthurt.
Yeah.
No, I just
you'd
don't like
rather-
Joaquin Phoenix.
You'd rather River be there instead?
Jesus.
Just saying, bro.
Yeah, at any rate, it's about this potential like non-DCEU Joker movie that would be like an origin story. So it wouldn't be part of the continuity of like Jared Leto's Joker. It's not like a recasting. It would be a totally separate thing.
I think if they did it like 50s and 60s style, like I feel like he sits really well in that world. Like I feel like he could do a really, really good job.
Maybe try to be a little more positive about it.
But I don't like him, and I don't want to.
We all have our Henry Cavill. It's okay.
Well, we know who yours is. Yeah, so at any rate, he's in talks. He's sort of circling that role. I don't think anything is confirmed or 100% yet, but
Yeah.
I think he's the one that they're looking at.
You're still the one I want.
Really? Shania Twain?
Still the one.
No. HBO's Watchmen pilot to be directed by Nicole Castle.
So I don't know who that is, but I'm really stoked that it's getting filmed.
Yeah, I mean, I'm probably demonstrating my own ignorance too, but I also don't. No, certainly not by name.
You guys don't know who Nicole Castle is?
Do you?
No.
I like that show where she's a writer who works at the police force.
She directs the thing, and then
Isn't
you know,
he Castle on that show though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
She has nothing to do with it.
Yeah.
It's just Castle.
Richard, can you
find out?
can you produce? Because we're all terrible and we don't know.
Can we
who
make-
the
Yeah,
Castle
she
is.
made the movie like The Woodsman, which was really good.
Can we make it seem like I knew who she was?
A little bit of heaven.
We can't edit it.
I don't know how to do it at this point.
I can't edit it to make you sound any smarter.
That's. I mean, I only have so many hours.
But again, it's just like the
Woodsman was really good.
Infinite.
I'm interested in that. I think that like that gives her some credit. She did that TV show, The Killing, which is pretty sweet.
Oh, I did like that show actually.
Yeah. Oh, and she did 2 episodes of the TV show Rectify, which is very good.
So good.
Really good. And 2 episodes of The Leftovers. She looks like for a long time she's just been kind of like one of those
lots of TV,
director for hire, like come in for an episode here and there.
Gun.
That's awesome. But I mean, it's one step closer to this show actually happening. They've got a director for the pilot. Yeah, I'm all for it. And it might be nice to have a female director in a show that's otherwise like super like male gazy.
I think my only concern is like this is a super high concept like genre like TV show. She hasn't really done anything like that before. I mean, The Leftovers is kind of high concept, but not that much like visually.
I mean, Watchmen is dense. Like there's a lot of material in it, but I don't know that I'd call it high concept.
She can do like a lot of dense stuff for sure, but I don't know. Once you start bringing in like Blue Dick, it's like
I don't think that.
No?
I don't know.
You
I don't
think she can handle it?
I don't think.
I don't know if she can handle the Blue Dick. I don't know.
Jesus, come on.
That's not what I meant.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I honestly don't think that there's anything in Watchmen that's like more daunting than especially because since it's a like adapted story, like the story bit's written.
Yeah.
You just do it.
Yeah, I guess. All right. Well, we'll see.
Bendis bringing creator-owned titles from Marvel's Icon over to DC.
I'm gonna forget what his imprint is called, but he had all of these things that he had created that he actually like owned the characters, he owned sort of the universe. But part of the deal when he became a DC exclusive artist was that he actually brought all of those things over to Marvel. So now DC is publishing all of those like creator-owned titles.
Like
so that's kind of
Jinx
like
World.
Jinx World. Thank you. Yes.
Yeah.
That's the one. So, I mean, like, that's kind of a big part of that deal. Like, Marvel doesn't keep that anymore. He gets to still work on Jinx World and bring that with him while he's working for DC.
Which is really interesting. Has anything like that ever happened before?
I honestly don't know. Yeah, I'm really not sure. If anyone listening knows if, like, anything sort of like that is precedent in the world of, like, artists moving over. But I think in general, like, exclusivity to artists is a relatively recent development.
Oh, I mean, yeah, I mean that's
there are artists who just worked at one publishing house for a very long time, but I think the idea of like specifically signing someone to a contract where they only work for you might be relatively recent. So
I think
there might not be precedent for this.
I think that's how Image Comics started, was that basically everybody gets their like access, like
Image is
rights,
creator owned, but what I
Yeah.
mean is like DC and Marvel both do a thing now where when they like sign particular talent, they'll be like, you only work for us. You don't.
there's gotta
also
be-
Yeah, that's
write
what I
your own.
mean.
There's
Yeah.
got to be like a no compete clause in their contracts and stuff like that to keep them from.
Not everyone.
No.
Not everyone. Some
people like Bendis, obviously.
if you're like the big name, if they
Yeah.
think you're like going to be the voice of them for a while, then they'll do that. But if you're like an artist on like you hate to use the term, but like on a lower kind of tier book or whatever, you might be doing that. You might be doing something for Dark Horse. Maybe you did
Yeah.
an issue of Hellboy. Maybe you
Especially-
did like something over for Marvel too. Like they're just working.
They do
Like
that with
they're all
artists a
freelancers,
lot.
right? Like
Yeah.
they have to put their living together some way. So when you're committing someone to only writing for you, the only way you can do that is being like, you're going to write Justice League all the time, and you're going to write our big events and or whatever.
Yeah.
In Bendis' case, he's writing both Superman and Action Comics.
Well, bend this, bend that. Now on to this week's polls.
Oh yeah.
I only have one that I really want to talk about because it's insane.
It's me too.
Okay. Like comic or
No.
okay. I'm going to talk about a comic. Then.
Yes.
The one I want to talk about is it's the one-shot Dark Knight's Rising: The Wild Hunt.
Oh, I've heard about. Everybody's talking about this right
It's
now.
insane.
I think you made quite the post about it on Twitter.
Well, I don't know if my post was that exceptional, but
I think it was it shook the ground of the DCU.
yeah, as I do. So it takes place between Dark Knight's Metal 5
Betwixt.
and 6. Betwixt, yes, it's betwixt those. But basically, the Flash and Raven and Cyborg are on this ship called the Ultima Thule, which the Monitor ship. They're going through the multiverse. They're being chased by the dark multiverse Batman. through the multiverse. You see all these other worlds. You remember I talked about
Yes.
like the pirate water world one?
Yes.
You see that one.
Oh.
They're kind of crashing through the multiverse.
That's so cool.
And this whole thing is unfolding, but then elsewhere, Detective Chimp is trying to play with the harmonics of the multiverse, and he's kind of regressing, like he's losing his super intelligence and things like that.
Fuck.
But the thing I want to talk about, spoiler alert, the thing I want to talk about is that the multiverse has 52 worlds. The big reveal in this book is that there's a secret 53rd Earth.
What?
They reveal themselves at the end. They say the 53rd Earth is here to like save the day. And this world is all versions of super intelligent like apes.
What?
Like Mr. Stubbs, who travels with the Monitor,
Gorilla Grodd,
Detective Chimp, but basically it's like a world of super intelligent apes. They're the secret 53rd Earth that's going to like maybe save the day in this metal event. Yeah, so that reveal fundamentally changes like the multiverse, but it's also just fucking weird as shit. I'm so excited
really cool
to see where this whole thing ends, because this story has gone all over the place. It's included Morpheus the Dream Lord from Neil Gaiman's Sandman. It's included the Challengers of the Unknown. It's included the whole multiverse and the Monitor Sphere. It's included this whole new dark multiverse, which is brand new to the lore. And yeah, now this extra Earth with these super intelligent apes. Yeah, it was written by Scott Snyder, who's been writing this whole thing, but with, take a guess,
Morrison.
I love it. Oh my god, it's great. Colin, you would hate it.
That's fucking rad.
That was the one I wanted to talk about.
I'm super into that.
Yeah.
I will talk about now Gotham by Gaslight.
You watched it.
Oh, I watched it this afternoon.
And?
Oh god, it's so good.
Yeah.
I'll admit one thing. I kept confusing Gotham by Gaslight with Ninja Batman.
Oh, with the anime that's coming out.
Yeah,
Right.
yeah. And so I part of it, I kept being like, where's Joker? Joker's not in this. So, Colin, I don't think you remember what this movie was about, but it's Batman in if he existed in the time of Jack the Ripper in England, and Jack the Ripper is like on the loose. Now the ending, I'm not going to spoil it. It's going to make people upset.
Probably.
Who Jack the Ripper is going to bum some people out for sure. And tweet at me if you feel the same way.
But what did you think of it as, like, first of all, did you read the book?
No.
Okay. Then what did you think of it just in terms of like the animation style, the art style, the voices, stuff
The
like
voices
that?
were great. That Batman was so good. Like I always have
Was it Bruce Greenwood?
Yes, it was.
Yeah.
I love him as Batman.
He's great as Batman.
I have a really hard time listening to anybody else like as Batman, like
even Kevin Conroy?
except for Kevin Conroy.
Right, okay.
So whenever I hear anybody else besides Kevin Conroy do it, yeah. I'm just like I can't. I don't buy it.
Yeah.
But
I do like Bruce Greenwood.
Bruce Greenwood did a great job. I really enjoyed that. I thought it was really good. The more I see Catwoman, the more I realize I don't really like her as a character.
Really?
Yeah. Like, even in this context, I was kind of like, meh. Like, I don't know.
Interesting.
I always love, like Poison Ivy. I just, like, for me, Catwoman is never enough, like, of who she claims to be. Like, at the end of the day, she just is a good person.
Yes.
And she was just kind of a good person in this
Sure.
movie. And I'm just kind of like, oh, did you just nobody, like, they don't care about making her a bad guy anymore.
She's not, yeah.
And I guess she's like, I don't know. And so that kind of bugs me because I'm just like, well, then she's just like this weird, like, cat lady. And I don't know, like some spinster.
Like every cat lady?
Yeah, I don't know who can do some
Like
cool shit.
Like the doc over here, who's the weirdest cat lady of them all.
Don't worry about it.
One of the things that I really liked that they did was there's these like little like Oliver orphan kids like all throughout, and they are like pickpocketing and stuff.
Sir, may I
Yeah,
have
yeah.
another?
There's a bunch of those, but there's these three that keep bumping into like Bruce Wayne and Batman and stuff, and the names
At
of
the
them,
same time.
the names are like Tim, Damien, and something else.
Oh, is Damien one of them?
I think so. Yeah.
Oh, it's not Dick, Jason, and Tim?
I think it might be Dick, Jason, and Tim.
Oh,
I just
okay.
felt like that. It's literally the Robin names,
Right.
and then like at the end of it, like there's a scene.
Spoiler alert!
Spoiler alert! There's an end scene at their like going away inside like a horse and carriage, and Alfred's sitting like riding the carriage, and Bruce goes, Alfred, like, are these yours? And he goes, no, sir, they're yours. And I was like, that's
Nice.
That's fucking rad. I was like, I love, and like, because in your head, then you could be like, there's this whole other universe where Gotham by Gaslight, these three kids all become Robin, and like, I was super super happy with that. I mean, the animation was really good. The voiceover, some of the best that I've seen, like in some anime, especially DC stuff, can be a little bit weak if you don't have the right team.
DC is usually pretty good on it.
I don't know. There's some like mid-tier stuff like in the like early 2000s that I just did that I watched a lot of and I was kind of not really into. I find that they have an issue with, and there was a little bit of this at the beginning of this where they record everybody separately, and so nobody's ever reacting off people. So like somebody will say something funny, and you have that weird Japanese anime thing where everybody just stays quiet and looks at each other.
Certainly with these movies that tends to happen, but I know in general, well, I guess Andrea Romano didn't work on this, did she? But her thing was she always wanted people in the room,
and that's
together.
what I like. Yeah, that's and so you really feel that because like whenever something funny happens, like nobody reacts off of it, and that always kind of bums me out,
right?
Because I'm just like, oh wait, is this not funny? I don't know, I don't understand. So, but otherwise,
you don't have any independent thought on that. You can laugh if you want to laugh at stuff.
No, everybody else has to laugh.
I have to wait for the children to laugh.
I want to look like an idiot.
Idiot for my friends who are on the TV.
Overall, I actually wanted to bring this in this episode anyway, so I can start with this here. I think we should do a rating system. What do you think, Colin?
Of what?
Like, we could do it out of capes, like 5 capes.
Okay, out of 5 capes. By Gaslight.
I give this 4 capes. It's great. There's definitely some holes in it for sure. I think like as a story all the way through, it feels like a Batman thing. It also just kind of feels like a really good episode of a TV show that I wish this was.
I feel like if we're gonna do a cape system, it shouldn't be a number. It should be like a style. So like if there's holes in it, it's kind of shabby. It'd be like a Ragman cape.
I feel like it's going to get way too complicated. No.
Superman cape.
We might as well just not do a rating system.
Oh, then let's not do a rating system.
No, I think it's fun. I think it'll that way we can compare it.
No. We can't find an agreement on this.
I want you to specifically use this as well because I feel like it's a good way to
work.
I feel like it's a good way for you to understand how you like things and compared to other things.
Well, I think that's actually the perfect segue.
Well, actually, I would give this idea 0 capes out of 5
Well,
capes.
too bad I'm producing, so just do
So, Colin.
Yeah.
We gave you a reading assignment.
Hell yeah, we did.
First one in a while.
Yeah, it's been a bit.
Yeah.
I forgot that I knew how to read.
I know.
So,
good thing I had all those capes.
Yeah. God damn.
So, the book that we gave Colin to read is The Spectre, Volume 4, Number 5. We remember how this works. Let's go in, Colin. Give us.
But for
give
people
us,
who
give
maybe
us
don't know how it goes, maybe we should tell them how it goes.
I was doing it.
So first,
Colin, why don't you take us through the actual story? Give us a synopsis. Don't give us too much of the what you
Colin
liked.
starts trying to read it all right now.
What you liked, what you didn't like.
Well, I liked that there's an ad for
no, I just said
World
I said don't do this yet.
Literally, don't do this.
Oh,
the opposite of what you're doing.
What do you want me to do now?
God, I'm tired. Take us through the story. What is this issue about? Let's start there.
A peppermint synopsis.
This story is about. There's like a Green Lantern guy in there. Hal Jordan Johnson.
Jordan, you got it right.
Hal Jordan. Okay. Hal Johnson. Hal
That's
Johnson's
Body
the
Break.
Body Break guy.
Yeah.
No, it is Hal
It's Hal
Jordan.
Jordan.
Yeah, it's Hal Johnson. It's Body Break.
His Body
Is
Break.
it?
He's
Yeah.
got the mustache.
I'm Joanne McLeod.
So anyways, right out of the gates, you got what's his face with 2 faces?
Two-Face.
Yeah. What's his name? His other name again though?
Harvey Dent.
Harvey Dent.
There
That's
he
the
goes.
one. So he goes into
Who's also in that Gotham by Gaslight.
Yes.
Cool. Yeah. Can I do mine now?
Yeah.
4
sorry.
capes. And so he goes into this like politician's office and like he like flips a coin and doesn't shoot him, and then he's like gonna try to bribe him or whatever because he's an asshole and he's like a twisted politician. And Harvey's like, you're a dick. And then the Spectre shows up.
Yep.
And he's like, hey Harvey, remember how you're kind of a dick right now? Do you want to go back to just being regular old Harvey that everyone loves? And he's like, yeah, that's great. And then he's cool for a while. And then he like tries to find his wife. Oh no, he finds this homeless dude that like he mistakens for his old drunk dad.
Yep.
And he like boots the mother out of that guy.
Sure does.
He makes a real bad example of him. And then he's like, oh no, you're just an old drunk. And not my dad, even though my dad was old drunk. And there's like that whole thing. And then he's like, oh, well, I've got to like find my true love or whatever. And so he goes to like try to find his wife at his old house, which of course she's not there, but it's some other like chick. And then does he kill her in that
No.
scene? Oh, he's like choking the hell out of her. It's really not a good scene. Harvey Dent is a total dick.
Yep.
Even without the Two-Face part, like he's a real piece of work.
Yep.
And then the Spectre eats the Two-Face side, and then realizes that like Harvey Dent actually needs Two-Face to like be who he is now, because he like I guess he like chose this kind of thing. It's like,
Yep.
And then yeah, it's just bad. It's too bad. And then
Okay.
Harvey gets his
No.
thing back.
We're not doing that yet.
And then he gets his thing back, and then he's Two-Face again, and he's like, why would you do this to me? You're such an asshole, or whatever. And then,
This, by the way, like mumbling off mic, podcast gold.
Yeah.
So I'll jump in because you're right, but I'm going to fill in.
No, I know I'm right. I read it.
I'm going to fill in some of the gaps here because that is very cursory. So, as you said, that's right.
It took him like 2 seconds to flip through that thing. So what do you expect?
So, as you said,
Child prodigy.
it starts with Two-Face. He is confronting this politician, and they have a history. The politician like knows Harvey, and
They used to be homeboys.
yeah, exactly. And then Two-Face says like, "Oh, you're not like the optimistic politician anymore. You take money from special interest groups." Blah 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 blah. You know, he burns the bribe money that this politician has taken.
He burns up his whole safe.
Yep. And then he flips the coin, and the coin says not to kill him, so he just shoots around him. But basically, after he does that, then Two-Face goes back to his like lair, and he's on his own, and he's kind of there's a bit of a interior monologue between Harvey and Two-Face, and they're talking about how they're two parts of the whole, and he prays, and it summons Hal Jordan, who is the Spectre at this particular moment in the comics.
Yeah, and it like wakes Hal out of a thing with his old lady.
Yes, yeah. Hal has been meeting up with Carol Ferris.
Yeah.
And then
She has a cool haircut.
Yeah, and then he hears this prayer, and he shows up, and he has previously been Parallax, been a villain, and then sacrificed himself to like reignite the sun, and now as the Spectre, he's trying to deal with whether or not his mission should be one of vengeance. That's traditionally what the Spectre does. But for Hal, he's been trying to make it a mission of redemption for himself, but also for the people that he's meant to traditionally just punish. So when he shows up and Two-Face is there, he tries to redeem him by removing, like you said, the Two-Face part of him. So it's just Harvey. And then, yeah, like you said, as it goes on, Harvey isn't right when it's just Harvey. He confuses that homeless guy for his drunk dad, and he beats the shit out of him. And then he goes to like his old home, and he kind of assaults the woman that lives there, and he says like, "But where's my, like wife or whatever?"
Yeah, this is my house.
Yeah, and in the meantime, the Spectre has realized that the Two-Face side of Harvey is part of him.
Yeah,
that you can't.
There's like a flash to like his home or something, right?
Yeah, and he tries. Hal's initial idea is that he's going to cure the Two-Face half and then put them back together. But he realizes that that's not actually part of it. Like the actual spirit inside Hal that he's sort of controlling reveals to him that like every soul kind of makes a choice, has a purpose, has a path it has to follow, and he can't just fix things magically. Like he technically maybe has the power to do it, but it's not right, and he shouldn't. And things will find a way to bend back to where they're meant to be, which is what's been happening to Harvey. So ultimately, he does reunite Harvey and Two-Face, makes him Two-Face again, but says like, "This is, if you want forgiveness, it's up to you, Harv." So the book is really about, this whole like series is about Hal trying to bend the mission of the Spectre towards redemption instead of vengeance. But this issue in particular, I thought, sort of illustrated it. Now, I know you read it. You hinted that you didn't like it.
I didn't hint that at all, actually.
You said it was bad.
That's not what I said at all.
You said the words, "it was bad."
No, I didn't.
You did.
When did I say that?
like before I jumped in.
No.
Hey, listeners, did Colin say it was bad? Hashtag it was bad. And if he didn't, hashtag Doc was bad.
Bad Doc.
Bad Doc, yeah. Okay, so then forget I said
actually,
that. Then
so,
what did you think of this
how
issue?
about ask me what I thought about it instead of just assuming everything? Because you
I won't tell you what you thought.
PhD in
you tell me what you thought.
BST. The right out of the gates, I was like, okay, I'm in this. It's a Harvey Dent thing. Cool.
Yeah.
And then I was like, whoa, what the hell is going on? This Carol, and it was confusing. And then that part was so integral to the rest of it that the minimal amount of initial confusion and shock was overtaken with understanding, because it was very quick to see why it was so important for Hal Jordan to be exposed as like this like caring guy who's trying to like make things better and redeem himself, and like it's all done in that quick little dialogue with her.
Yeah.
And then as soon as it's like, oh, it's a single honest, like a single sincere prayer or something like that, and he goes to Harvey's aid. It was a good jump quickly back to the start of the story. Yeah. Or the starting theme, which was Harvey Dent trying to come to terms with who he is, because like he goes at one point back to his lair, and there's like his guys are playing cards or playing poker or whatever, and he goes into his office and he's having it out with himself. Yeah. And I don't mean like knuckle sandwich to the business. I just mean like him and Two-Face are like trying to figure out who's in control.
Well, and that's what leads to that prayer.
Yeah. Which is really quite cool to see that back and forth, because the dichotomy of Harvey Dent's character is never more apparent than it is in that quick, brief little exchange.
Yeah, and I mean, it's a device that lots of like comic writers use with Two-Face, is the two halves talking to each other, like not like the Golluming thing where they're like two separate things, but yeah, that idea that he's having this sort of like inner
they're on
dialogue.
The same path, they're on the same train of thought, and they're having this debate about it, which was like really quite cool to see them both giving each other the space to kind of voice their own personality in it as well, which was like really quite interesting and cool. Yeah. I liked how when he goes to his old residence, I enjoyed the fact that there is that very sharp moment of like, whoa, this is not what I thought it was going to be. Right. Because they very easily could have.
You mean where he goes into that house where he thinks
his wife is going to be.
Yeah.
I think it was like when I was first reading it, my eyes were kind of telling my brain that like, oh, she thinks it's Two-Face, who's like this bad guy, and so she's going to lash out and attack him, and then like instantly realizing that this is entirely a different person. Yeah. Was really quite cool. Yeah.
Oh yeah, for her, just a stranger broke into her house and then started screaming about why was she in their house. Yeah. Yeah.
I thought that was really cool. The artwork in this is really, really visually stimulating. It's like really well done.
Mm-hmm. Now, in terms of the actual story of this issue, I mean, obviously it's part of a longer sort of arc or a longer theme. Did you feel like this was a good sort of one issue story?
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Is this one that's somewhere in the middle?
I mean, in terms of the run, yes.
That makes sense.
This Two-Face one, Two-Face is only in this one. This Two-Face story is contained to this single issue.
Right. Well, if that's the case, then it's very apparent that Hal Jordan and the Spectre, this is probably the most integral part of this entire line of the stories. Having not read any of the other ones, I think this is the one that dictates any sort of naivete from the earlier parts of the story and moving forward into understanding what his power and what his path is supposed to be with the Spectre.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I think you are right. The next issue starts an arc.
When it comes to stories.
The next issue starts an arc that's called The Redeemer, where Hal tries
Morrison? You hear me? Get a pen and a pad of paper, and I can help you.
Nice. It starts an arc where Hal kind of comes to term with his new sort of mission. The one thing we didn't mention that's in this is that there's not only does Hal have a bit of a moment with Carol Ferris, he has a bit of a moment with the ghost of Abin Sur. And Abin Sur is the Green Lantern from whom he inherited the ring. And in the context of this series, Abin Sur's soul is sort of traveling with Hal Jordan's because his own redemption is tied to Hal's redemption. Basically, like, he is in purgatory because he's the one that gave Hal the ring, and eventually Hal turned and became Parallax and caused all this destruction. So for Hal,
Way to go, Abin Sur.
not only is he trying to redeem himself,
Dick move.
but now if he redeems himself, he also redeems Abin Sur.
Yeah.
So he has that person to kind of bounce this new potential mission off of as well. You said you liked the art. Was there like a moment or a particular piece that really like stood out or really struck you?
I enjoyed the part when the Spectre, or I guess it's Hal Jordan as the Spectre, ingests Two-Face.
Yeah,
there's a really cool part where it's like, because you're looking at the panel and like Two-Face looks like this like giant like sphere of energy.
Yeah,
and then
he's kind of contained in like a green ball.
And then as the Spectre eats it, it's like this tiny little. It like does little step downs where it's like, and then you see it between his teeth, and it's like this tiny little. It's like that picture of Earth from like really far away.
Right. Yeah,
it's really quite cool to see it as this like tiny little marble almost.
Yeah, I really like the visuals near the beginning with Carol Ferris, because when he first
the handwriting and all that.
Well, no, I don't mean like the lettering. I mean like the art of the characters, like, because he shows up and he's in these big kind of Spectre robes and he's sort of white skinned and ghost like, and it's freaking her out. And then it's two panels side by side, and he changes his appearance to look like the old Hal Jordan in the bomber jacket and that. But
in
I
the
just
background,
like
you can tell. I think that's her new partner in the background.
Well, yeah, then you get like this overlay of the person that she's actually with now, and that's another thing
but
Hal's dealing with.
He's like a pyramid almost in the background, like a sphinx or something. The way that he's
definitely like overlaid. Yeah, you're right. There is that third person who's not really there, but he's part of that relationship.
It's like a bust or just like his head shot, and it's like in the background, but it looks like it's like a natural kind of thing.
Yeah, totally. So you liked the story, you liked the artwork. Would this inspire you to read maybe the issues leading up to or coming out of this? Like, are you interested at all in this idea of Hal Jordan as the Spectre?
I hate to like break your heart with it, but not really.
No,
I feel like them.
So where's the disconnect? Where you like it but not that much?
Because I feel like the stuff leading up to it, I'd be disappointed in his lack of character and his lack of understanding of his true power in this.
So you like that this is like the moment?
Yeah, I like that this is definitely the climax in this series where he discovers his true purpose of self. And then I think anything coming after it would just kind of seem like a redundant redo of that moment of like, well, I got to do this because this is the way that I am, and that's just the way it goes.
I mean, I don't want to encourage the belief that reading one issue like you understand the full like arc of things, but I will say that actually the Redeemer arc that comes after this isn't as good as this issue for kind of those reasons. Which, I know I
love how people doubt me.
But this is why I don't want to say this out loud, because now you think it's because you have some sort of preternatural story.
I'm super
guessing
good at
ability.
I'm really good at storytelling, so it's just kind of part of what I do.
No.
Is that why you keep interrupting me while I'm saying things?
Yeah, because I understand a good joke.
Listeners, hashtag good joke or hashtag we'll get the next one.
This is why I don't fuck with Twitter anymore.
Okay,
people keep trying to kill you.
So you wouldn't go for the rest of this series necessarily.
No,
I did pick this though because
you picked the right one.
I know that you took to Two-Face when you read Long Halloween.
Yeah.
So I deliberately picked this because it's a Two-Face story that doesn't involve Batman. I thought that might be something kind of interesting.
Well, it was really cool to see him fighting with himself as soon as he lost the evil side.
Right. Leaving this sort of arc out of it, has anything about this made you more interested maybe in the idea of the Spectre as a character? Not necessarily Hal Jordan, but just this character, this sort of ghostly apparition that shows up to deal out sort of judgment. I'm
kind of stuck in the middle on this one because I do have a natural affinity to not be overly excited about that Deus Ex Machina styled character.
Sure.
There is
And
also
Spectre is literally a god out of the machine.
yeah. And so for that reason, no.
Okay.
But for the artwork and for the ability to play on not only the character that is possessed by the Spectre, but the character that it influences, there is definitely an interest there to see, like, has there been a point when the Spectre like took over Batman or Superman?
No.
And why not?
Well, yeah, the Spectre only has kind of one host for an extended period of time. But there are stories where the Spectre has gone hostless and then goes like on a rampage, because without like the human
conscience
host, there's no conscience.
Yeah.
And so there are a couple of stories where the Spectre loses that and then becomes quite dangerous. But
like everyone's gonna be like, yeah, of course you're gonna say this because you like Ragman, but I mean like the costume effect of the Spectre has that very drapey kind of like rags kind of vibe.
well, I think I've brought this up before, but there is a series that is both the Spectre without a host goes on a rampage and Ragman and friends team up to fight him. It's called Day of Vengeance.
Might have to bring
So
that in.
perhaps in future, that might be something that you would be into.
I would love to see like a Bill and Ted rendition of the Spectre and Ragman.
I showed you that one variant.
I know,
cover,
it's
and now
like-
everything is Bill and Ted.
No, but like think about
It
the
all
fact
comes
that
back to
they're
Bill
both
and Ted
they're both so similar
Yeah.
that it could be like, I'm not saying like bang on a Bill and Ted thing, but it's like the Spectre and Ragman go on an adventure.
Sure.
I like it. So on that note, if Ragman is your 5 capes,
No, I'm not doing the capes thing.
no, you are. We're gonna do it.
I don't like this.
And that Morrison comic is
Oh yeah, Ultra Comics is
Yeah,
0 capes.
It's like
0
minus
capes.
3 capes.
where does this land?
This one?
Yeah,
This one I really enjoyed. Yeah, I like
So-
this one a lot.
which
He's
is
so insistent on not doing it.
just do it.
I had a really good time.
Just do it.
Hey, fans on Twitter, you can settle this for us.
Colin's holding up 4 fingers.
Hashtag no capes or hashtag those capes.
Okay, sure. You guys want to hear a rating system so that we have some sort of idea of how Colin actually feels about these comics comparatively to each other.
If I were Colin, I think he's somewhere
I feel like
between
he's
like
at a
3.5 or 4.
4, yeah, I
I
know,
think
yeah.
for this one.
So
Out of 5.
So it's either like 70% or 80%.
Yeah. Does that?
I don't know, because then it becomes
We can give a Rotten Tomato score. I don't care.
No, it's not even like that.
Yeah,
It's
we
just
need a bunch of Russian bots to.
all I'm getting at is that like
Shrek 4 is best.
I'm not gonna judge these based on a rating system. It's kind of like a pass fail thing for me.
You okay?
Where
But
it's-
this one passed.
this one passed.
I
This
just
one's
want to
really
know
good.
comparatively, like, because I don't think you see this as the same level as Ragman. So it's important to have a differentiation of how you feel about them.
As much as I talk about how much I like Ragman,
Like on the Colin scales, how many mess?
Ragman also got a pass. Like
Yeah.
it's
There's so much of this episode is you trying to make him use this cape thing. Oh, I love that. That's
Can we just move on to the part where we say that the theme is good and evil?
what. Well,
All right, it's up to you, fans. Wait, fans. We got sent a message.
Begrudging listeners.
We got
Yeah.
and I think, was it Josh Gill that suggested? I believe it was Josh Gill suggested their name is interns.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, because he said if I'm the doctor, you two are the residents.
Yeah.
And all of the listeners are the interns.
Which I kind of love. So if you interns would love to get a rating system.
By the way, interns, where's my coffee? So before
Oh, here, sir. Oh, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So before we completely leave this, I'll say that this series, the first 10 issues of it, are some of the first things that I bought when I came back to comic books. Like I got my dad's comics, but then when I really started collecting on my own, the first 10 issues of this series are really like
What got you?
what
back
got
in?
me back in.
Can I
and
ask
this issue in particular was a big part of it.
like let's say this one. What was it that was so important to you about this one in particular?
It's part of why our theme today is going to be good and evil. It sort of opens the door to explore a thing that's kind of big in DC Comics, which is that good and evil are inherent in DC. they are relative to each other, but characters are just one or the other. They might have turns, doing the opposite, or they might kind of migrate. But the way the mythology is built, it's either that they were always that way and they had been denying their true self, or that they are currently denying their true self and they'll revert back. There's something like inherent about the good and evil of people. And this story kind of addresses that. Like Harvey, you can't just wave a magic finger and make him Harvey Dent and make him good. That's not the path he's on. I think that's interesting.
I find it interesting that the thing that brought you back from Douche Doctor was a comic series like that.
What do you mean, Douche Doctor?
We all know what he's talking about.
You were a douche. You were.
Yeah, but I wasn't the doctor though.
Well, I'm not going to say who you were.
The Doctor of Douche.
Yes. So you were, prior to Dr. DC, you were Douche Doctor. And these comics brought you back.
I don't like this backstory.
Hey.
What a terrible origin.
I saw the denim suit.
Maybe he was.
Oh, the denim suit was. I
was
was already collecting
That's
comics
true.
when I went to
what am I thinking of? Of course, the guy who wore denim suit was into comic books. I apologize. I saw that mustache.
The douche denim doctor.
Oh yeah,
denim douche doc.
Yeah.
All right. So
no, he was post douche at that point.
Yeah.
Dr. Denim.
Without
douche.
a doubt.
Well, at any
rate,
rate,
saying Dr. Denim. Douche.
I'm glad you enjoyed this. I did try very hard to find something I thought that you would like.
Yeah.
So before we move into questions, should we take a break?
Yeah. Dr. DC podcast will be right back
after this message.
This episode of the Dr. DC podcast is brought to you thanks to our sponsor, Great Lakes Grooming Company. Longtime listeners know that we've been extolling the virtues of Great Lakes Grooming's products for a while now. I switched up scents. I was using the Your Love scent in the beard oil. I'm on to Clear Creek coffee, and it's delicious. I haven't been eating it. I've just been using it in my beard. But it helps keep my beard like nice and like in good condition, especially right now. It's wintertime. It's very dry. It can make your beard brittle. So the oil and then the beard balm, also Clear Creek coffee. Moving on over, new scent. It just keeps everything sort of lush and lustrous and beautiful. Just the way I like me to be. I've also got that peppermint. Oh God, that peppermint lip balm. It's completely like numbed my mouth. I can't speak now, but damn if it isn't effective.
Told you to stop eating it.
Yeah, don't eat it. Just use it on your lips. Great Lakes Grooming is meant to be easy and ready to use, rain or shine. All of their products are purposefully designed and environmentally responsible. They're handmade in Canada and ready for adventure wherever one may find themselves. And for you, lucky listeners, you can get 10% off on Great Lakes Grooming's regular priced products when you go to greatlakesgrooming.com and you use the promo code DRDC Podcast. That's DRDC Podcast. So greatlakesgrooming.com, use the promo code DRDC Podcast and save 10%. And now, back to the show.
And we're back!
Yeah, we're doing it.
We're doing it and doing it and doing it right.
The theme leading out of that issue of the Spectre is about good and evil in DC Comics.
Beyond good and evil.
Yeah.
See also Colin and Richard.
Yes.
Which one is which, though? We'll never know.
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Ooh.
The more, okay. All right. Twin turns. Twitter interns.
Yeah, I got what you're doing.
We'll workshop it.
Yeah. I see what you've done.
Yeah. What questions do we have?
Which one is good? Which one is evil?
No, so I mean, which questions from people do we have?
Oh, heading over to Facebook. To the face and the book, going to the Facebook. Boop.
Right on the nose. Our good friend
today,
Josh Gill.
Oh, Gilly Gill.
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 Darkseid is usually portrayed as the embodiment of evil and Highfather as the embodiment of good. Where would you rank them as far as evil and good hierarchies go?
That's a great question.
Calling him Highfather really sounds like a Hitler-y kind of thing.
Well, we'll get to that in a second.
Yeah.
So both Darkseid and Highfather are part of the race known as New Gods. And I think we've touched on it a little bit before, but I think godhood in the DC mythology means that you actually are the embodiment of the thing that you're meant to be the god of. It's not just that you're like, if you're the god of knowledge, you're not just really smart. It's that you are knowledge in some manner.
Yeah.
When
physical embodiment.
When
of
Diana
knowledge.
became the god of war, she would actually she affected the places and people around her. Like she was war.
Really?
And there was a whole arc about her in the same way that Hal was trying to bend the mission of the Spectre from vengeance to redemption. She was trying to bend war to peace. And it wasn't working. It was actually causing her physical pain and distress. So Darkseid has been referred to and is kind of known as the god of evil. And I think that's accurate. I think he actually is the embodiment of evil in DC. Which in that case means he is the ultimate evil. There are demons and devils and other bad beings, but they act evilly. Darkseid is evil. There's a bit of a distinction in there, and you can argue maybe whether or not that actually means anything, but narratively, I think that's the difference between them.
I am the law.
Yes, Judge Dredd is law. Now, the difference is that Highfather is Darkseid's brother, and he's the leader of New Genesis. He is the opposite to Darkseid.
Wait,
Darkseid,
who's a New Genesis?
No, it's new Peter Gabriel, new Phil Collins.
I was more of a fan of Sega, but
Sega Genesis, yeah. This is new Sonic, new Tails, new Dr. Robotnik,
new Knuckles.
Yeah,
New Knuckles, who dis?
So Highfather and Darkseid are brothers. Darkseid is the god of evil and leads the planet Apocalypse. Highfather leads New Genesis and the new gods that live there. But Highfather is not the god of good.
Highfather.
Yeah. He's not the god of good, though. Darkseid is the god of evil. Highfather is just the leader of the good guys.
He's the leader of the good guys.
Thank you. There's a couple of proofs to this. One
Who's
is
the leader of the
Jesus
good
fucking
guys?
Christ. You're fucking killing me, man.
He's the leader. You know that letting it affect you only makes us want to do it more.
It shouldn't.
Yet it does every time.
Are you trying to find your stern dad voice in all this?
No.
Because we can practice if you want.
Oh yeah.
No, what I'm desperately trying to do is actually answer this question.
Do some sort of podcast.
Yeah, as if we were had a mission. Highfather gets his powers initially from a sky god, actually, as opposed to a god of good. So that's one proof that he's not the god of good. The other proof is that there's a lot of stories where Highfather, to Richard's point before, where he sounds almost dictatorial, Highfather is almost as bad as Darkseid sometimes in terms of his mission to win over Darkseid kind of consumes him at all costs. In recent years, there's a story called Godhead, which was a crossover between Green Lantern and the New Gods. And basically, Highfather decides that somewhere buried in the combined power of all the Lantern Rings is this thing called the Life Equation that will allow him to build an army that will destroy Darkseid. But in the quest for this, they are massacring the Lantern Corps. They're he creates, because he doesn't fully understand the power of it. He ends up making this sort of deformed army. The best way I could describe it is, you remember that episode of The Simpsons where Bart tries to turn the frog into the prince and just gets stuck halfway and goes "Kill me. Every moment I live is agony." Highfather basically makes a world like that, and then they have to execute everyone to put them out of their misery. Highfather has in multiple occasions lost sight of
The mission?
Not of the mission, but of what you lose if the mission is the only thing. Like that winning at all costs means you do lose something. You lose kind of your morality. I think those two things, where he gets his powers from and historic instances of him doing stuff like that, prove that he couldn't possibly be the god of good. So what that means is that if they're opposite numbers, Darkseid is evil incarnate and Highfather is just another good guy. Which means that he's kind of inherently at a disadvantage if it's a battle between good and evil, because he's not on the far, far ultimate good. So I think there's something interesting. There's an interesting tension in there that he has to work that much harder than to overcome someone like Darkseid. It's not just in him. But yeah, hopefully that answers the question.
Hopefully. I guess we won't know until Josh tells us whether or not he feels like we adequately answered the question, or if maybe the sing-songy stuff helped improve it, or I don't know.
I mean, obviously.
I'm sure it did.
Yeah.
Probably for sure. So we're going to go to Twitter.
Going to the Twitter.
Nice.
I like that.
Actually, I kind of like
That's
that.
a good one. Little stutter step. I like
Never
it.
doing it again.
Aw.
Really? The things I like?
Yeah.
So Stump Chunkman is on board.
Stop, junk, man.
This is quickly turning into drive time radio.
Stop. Junk.
In the morning.
I think I'm gonna need a bucket.
God, I hope some of that gets out.
I'm so glad we don't have a soundboard.
It's funny you say that.
Oh no. Quick, the question.
What's the take on Batman? Does he do the right things the wrong way? And do you think part of the takeaway from the dark metal stuff is to possibly have him try to lighten up a bit? Pun slightly intended.
Batman is a really... No, not this thing again. This confuses me. I don't like it. Batman is an interesting one. Obviously, Batman acts like a criminal. You know, like he's like breaking people's legs and, you know, sneaking into people's houses and stealing things and stuff like that. He works very extrajudicially.
Yeah, his ends apparently justify his means.
Precisely. He's very much that kind of a guy.
It's kind of a businessman in that way, the way that he fights crime.
Which is weird because he doesn't, as Bruce Wayne, he doesn't conduct business like that. He's very, like, super ethical as a businessman.
He's making up for his dark side.
Yeah, maybe, right?
It's business time.
I would maybe suggest that Batman, you know how I mentioned that there's a thing in DC where you're inherently one or the other, and everything you do is either just like a divergence from that, or you're finally getting to your destination. I would maybe make the argument that Batman is inherently bad.
He's bad.
Not fully evil, right? He's clearly not fully evil, but if that's like a spectrum, I think he's on the bad end.
I think
he does everything in his power to do the right thing, but I think it's fighting his nature. Like, I think Batman's nature is to be brutal and bad and horrible, and everything he's doing, like, the mission is the only thing that keeps like tugging him back to the good. But that's like an actual struggle, which is why he has Robins. That's why they're so important to him, or it's why he has his no-kill rule, because he's establishing
to hold him into humanity.
Exactly, he's establishing his own barriers. There's lots of heroes that kill and are still looked at as like totally good. Like Green Arrow kills people all the time, but he's like a fun-loving, like good guy. Batman is convinced that if he kills once, nothing will stop him. So that, to me, is the mark of someone who's only barely holding it together.
So does Batman and Green Arrow like butt heads when they're in the same?
Yeah, they're butt heads.
They do, but also for different reasons. Because Green Arrow is very like left-leaning. Like, he's a kind of commie. He's like a socialist, and Batman, as I've said before, kind of represents more of like a fascistic sort of approach to things. So
he's
they
a
also,
capitalist.
Well, so they also butt heads on that.
Yeah.
But I see Batman as a guy who's constantly struggling against his nature. I think he wants to be good, and I think he does everything he can to be good.
Bad feels so right.
But I think inherently he's not. And there is a comic book.
So hard.
There is a comic book. I'm not going to remember the issue number right now. If you listeners know it, please let us know.
Interns.
But there's one. Yeah, sorry. There's two like side-by-side caption boxes. One is Superman talking about himself, and one is Batman. I think it's from an issue where they've teamed up or something. But basically, Superman is doing something, and Batman says, the reason that he can trust Superman, this being with incredible power, is that he knows that at the end of the day, Clark is a good person. And then he says, and at the end of the day, I am not. I think he recognizes in himself that.
Are we going back to Justice League?
I think that's in that movie.
It is. No, it is.
Well, yeah, but I mean, like, because it's part of that character, right? Like, Batman can very easily lose his way. It's only through his own self-discipline that he doesn't. But if he were any sort of lesser man, he would right away lose his way.
I wonder what Batman's costumes and stuff would look like if he wasn't to be a hero, but he were to be a villain.
I think a lot more sharp edges.
They're already pretty sharp.
That's why I said more.
Yeah. It would look like one of the like DC like the metal ones.
Like,
yeah.
He might look like the Batman Who Laughs or something like that. Yeah. So I don't know if that's 100% where you thought I was going, Stump. But
good question, Colin. Oh, thanks, guys.
I actually.
No one said that.
Oh, sorry. To the point of the Dark Knight metal stuff, we're seeing a Bruce who's showing way more hope, but he's doing it to try and fight the nightmare worlds that are invading. I don't know if this is actually like a fundamental change in Batman or not, but I believe that Batman works best when he's not a good person who is desperately struggling against his own nature. I like that. I find that interesting. But yeah.
So Dave Rossi has the best question, in my opinion.
Sure.
He says, Carol Ferris, discuss.
The
the
best question is not a question.
Yeah.
But yeah. So Carol Ferris, who came up in the context of this issue of the Spectre, longtime Green Lantern like romantic interest, but you may not know, for a long time, Carol Ferris, as the Star Sapphire, was a Green Lantern villain. So that's a convoluted...
Can I just say that Carol Ferris sounds like a woman who wears like a sweater with like cats painted onto it?
She's got a real mom vibe too. Though.
Like she's got like a short bob, but because it's easier to just get it out of her way. She spends a lot of time at the dollar store. She like crafts for her kids.
I was gonna say she's like really into like bedazzling things.
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. She's got rhinestones somewhere.
Do you know what's funny? Just like the sound of the name, I do agree with you.
Like a rhinestone.
Couldn't be further from this character, but
My name's Carol Ferris.
You're introducing a new character.
Yeah, my name's Carol Ferris. I like good times, rhinestones, and a pina colada on the weekends because I'm bad.
Nice. Your Carol got a little sassy at the end there.
Well, I mean, just because you wear a cat sweater doesn't mean you got a little bit of business in you.
Fair enough. So at any rate, Carol Ferris, this history is a little convoluted because there's like long years of retcons and things like that. But as the Star Sapphire, for a while, that was kind of like overriding her personality. She was sort of the host too for the Violet entity, which is called the Predator, which is a very sort of violent, like dangerous entity. What was that? In the trees. But Carol, I do think is inherently good, and she hasn't been a villain for a very long time in the comics now. But I think all of those times where she was a villain, that's something else being superimposed on her. It was either like the will of the Zamorans, or it was the Predator entity, or it was these other things. I think Carol herself is good, and now as a Star Sapphire uses her powers for good, and fights alongside the Green Lanterns when it makes sense, and all that sort of thing. I think she is inherently a good person, but what you see there is these things that were inherently not good were sort of overtaking her. I don't see her flip from villain to hero as actually like a change in her character, because the way they retconned it allows for that like inherency to stay intact, that she was always good, something else was doing it. In the same way that Hal, you could make the argument, was always good, something else was doing it, and that thing was Parallax, the fear entity. I know there are Chad disagrees with me on this one, but I think you can make this argument. I don't think it's 100% out of left field or anything.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
Chad Bokelman has a question.
Oh, bogle.
Speak of the devil.
Was that really necessary? That's why you weren't answering. You weren't giving the questions because you wanted to text me. It's business time.
Yes. Great segue, though.
I'm glad that I'm in.
So Chad Bokeman says, let's talk some of the characters that toe the literal line. Etrigan, a demon who acts like a hero. Zoriel, an angel who willingly fell. Eclipso, Spectre before Spectre. And the angel version of Supergirl.
Right. So at the risk of like over repeating some things, I think there is a difference between good or evil acts and being good or evil. So some of the examples that Chad's given here, Etrigan is a demon who sometimes acts on the side of the angels.
Isn't his name Etrigan the demon?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he is a demon, and sometimes he's out for himself. If you're reading the current Ragman series, Etrigan has his own sort of game that he's playing, but he does often ally himself with like heroes. He has Jason Blood as like that he's bonded to, and I think that kind of pulls him closer to good, and he does good things. But I think he's still a demon at heart. Yeah, and in the sack. Zoriel is an angel, but his case of willingly falling isn't that he like turned against God. It's that he fell in love and wanted to be mortal. It's like literally the plot of City of Angels.
Oh my god!
Because he then becomes like the guardian angel of Los Angeles. Well, or he's based in Los Angeles rather. But Zoriel is always inherently good. He fell from heaven, but he wasn't evil. He chose that because he was in love. And then he became a member of the Justice League. He fought with the good guys. Zoriel has always been good. Eclipso, for a while, his backstory was changed so that he was like a previous version of the Spectre. He was like the spirit of God's wrath, as opposed to God's vengeance. So like I think the way they described it was that like Eclipso then would have been the spirit behind like the plagues of the Old Testament or like things like that. That, because it's wrath, that's not a pleasant aspect of God.
No.
So he was inherently evil. He was inherently bad. Didn't matter who the host was. Didn't matter any of that. Eclipso was bad. The Spectre was good because vengeance comes from a quote-unquote more righteous place. We can argue that because that I don't necessarily agree with, but that's what the comics were proposing, is that the Spectre was good, Eclipso was evil. And then the angel version of Supergirl is a very complicated thing. There's a being called the Matrix Supergirl who then merged with Linda Danvers and had a tie to there was like a fire angel and like a wind angel. But at any rate, this Matrix Supergirl was good. Always inherently good. None of these characters really, I think, blow apart the idea that you're one thing or the other. I think they fit pretty nicely into that idea that there's a sort of inherency to morality in DC.
Is it kind of weird that I really was hoping that you do the breakdown of the angel version of Supergirl as like the Will Smith rap from Fresh Prince?
Well, here is a story all about how a pocket universe created Matrix Supergirl. Pocket universe was destroyed and she fell in love with Lex Luthor Jr. because in her world, Lex Luthor was a good guy, but not in the real world. Lex Luthor Jr. tried to make a bunch of clones of the Matrix Supergirl. She found them all, destroyed them. Blah, 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 blah. Linda Danvers was dying and she merged with Linda.
You're right. That was a terrible idea.
I lost the flow.
Yeah, no, it was a terrible
A little bit, I lost the flow.
Yeah, a lot of it.
I'm sorry.
So I am Grant Richter. Oh, can I move on?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I am Grant Richter says, when discussing immoral choices for the greater good, John Constantine comes to mind.
Yeah. Constantine's another character who I think, like Batman, may not be a good person, but tries so hard to correct it. But John has a long history of he's sort of notorious in the world of the occult and the world of demons for conning or tricking his way out of situations. And sometimes he throws friends, whatever, under the bus.
I thought you were going to say a real good party.
He probably does, frankly. but sometimes he throws friends, family, others under the bus, at least in the short term, to get him out of a scrape. He'll probably try and double back, try and fix things, but sometimes his arrogance or things have cost people their souls. And the one big case is a little girl named Astra that he loses in what he sort of refers to as like the Newcastle incident. And it's this little girl whose soul he basically condemns to hell because his arrogance, he like fucks up this thing.
I've had a few Newcastle incidents back in Ontario. Few too many drinks.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Is that Newcastle, Ontario?
The beer.
Condemned some souls to hell.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such a good beer.
Constantine is not a good guy. He is like on the side of the angels. He does fight to protect people, but he's so selfish and so self-absorbed, and he has to, like Batman, constantly fight against his own nature to do good. So I think I'd say he's inherently bad, but he tries so fucking hard, and he does often do good. So it's a bad person doing good things. But I think, again, if he just stopped trying, if he just let his true nature like have its way, Constantine would not be a good person in any respect. No. He's barely a good person when he's trying. Like he would be 100% bad if he wasn't constantly working on it.
So we have one more question in our in our email box. It's Marco.
Sorry.
It's Marco on the email. The Enchantress seems like she's both. June Moon is good and Enchantress is evil. Is this true?
Yeah.
Is this true?
This is a really...
Ukrainian Popeye? What are you doing here?
What?
Why does Richard always leave the room?
I don't know. He never locks the door. Do you think he poops with the door open?
Yeah, I can hear him from here. Oh, he's got the good one. Oh, look at this squishy squashy.
No, I didn't think that's what that meant.
It means however meant to mean.
Sure. So the Enchantress...
Okay, goodbye.
Okay, bye, Ukrainian Popeye. Richard, please never leave again.
What? I don't.
Okay, well, I'll just move on.
I kind of like Ukrainian Popeye.
I don't. I kind of do. Enchantress is technically both. June
Who the
Moon
fuck was that?
is good. She is a good person, and the Enchantress, the succubus that's like bound to her, is evil. Now, what's interesting about the Enchantress is she ends up sort of representing like the spectrum of morality, because when she's just June Moon, when she's not using any magical powers, she is good, like right on the good end of the scale.
A real goody two-shoes.
But the more power she uses, the easier it is for the succubus to take control. So there's a lot of stories where like the Enchantress tries to do good and uses a little bit of magic, but the more she uses, the less control she has over that part of her, and then the Enchantress takes over and is evil and will try and do something else. So there's lots of stories where you're seeing that sort of like gradation, like the spectrum of morality. She starts in the really good place, and then as she's trying to do good, she's sort of like releasing gradually this evil in her. And in Day of Vengeance, which I brought up earlier, Enchantress is part of the team with Ragman that goes to take on the Spectre, and she tries to channel basically all of the magic in the world to give to Shazam so he can fight the Spectre.
Whoa.
And then it's too much for her, and the Enchantress takes over, and then they also have to fight the Enchantress for a bit.
She seems like a good time.
She's super dangerous. But that's why she, in the comics, joins the Suicide Squad voluntarily, because
Unlike the movie,
because she wants Waller to help her get rid of the succubus or contain it forever or whatever. And that's part of how she becomes part of that team in the comics, in the original Ostrander run.
Yeah.
So she's kind of interesting because she does flip back and forth, but it's really two separate beings. In the same way that Jason Blood and Etrigan are kind of two separate things. One of them is good, one of them is evil, but they're just inhabiting the same body. They just flip around. Or like Dr. Polaris, who's a Green Lantern villain with like magnetism powers.
I love his prize.
Yeah, it's great. He's a fan of literature. He has like a split personality, and the split personality is Dr. Polaris. There's good Neil Emerson and there's bad Dr. Polaris. So those are interesting ones too, because now you're talking about like what the Spectre might refer to as like a split soul, someone like Harvey and Two-Face. Maybe they've chosen this path together without knowing it, that they have to reconcile these two very separate halves of themselves. But they are sort of separate entities that just are bound together. They can't exist on their own anymore.
Did they ever really explain Two-Face how he like because it's more than just a mental break. Like,
well, it's like a history of like trauma and abuse, and it starts like fracturing his psyche, and he kind of builds this persona that in some stories he refers to as Big Bad. Big Bad Harv.
Yeah.
Or that's what they do in the show, at least in the animated show. He's Big Bad Harv was like this other half of his personality. And then the acid attack like snaps him and like fully like allows this personality to have a life of its own. But it's like a thing that like all of his anger and hatred, things he was like repressing from like being beaten as a kid and all this kind of stuff, was just being sort of shuttled away. And then the acid attack was the straw that broke the camel's back and actually like gave him those two personalities.
Neat.
Yeah.
Or as they say, the acid that turns one face into two.
Instead of the straw that can break the I don't know if it'll catch on.
Yeah, but I like it. It's got a good flair to it.
Yeah, it's
That's
not
nice.
cumbersome at all.
No, not at all. Those are some good questions this week.
Yeah.
I like that. I like this theme was
And
good.
I know sometimes I'm not great about actually posting like a blog post, but I have one that I think is particularly good and relevant that I will be posting sometime over the weekend after this episode comes out.
Ain't no dust on that bottle.
It's about a character we didn't talk about today, but Martian Manhunter.
We did talk.
Well, not in the questions. And his evil
Still counts as
his evil brother Ma'alafa'ak, who I don't think we've ever talked
you
about. on this show.
motherfucker.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is that just like them being cheeky, like motherfucker?
Well, no, because his name is Malefic. Like the Anglicism is Malefic, but it's
okay.
Ma'alafa'ak in Martian.
Motherfucker.
That's really funny. Do we know what the theme is going to be next week?
Dave Rossi, do not let your child listen to this, because then now he's gonna know how to say motherfucker without.
Yeah.
Do we know what the theme is next
Get in
week?
trouble. No trubs, no scrubs.
I feel like it's something to do with children.
No, it's not.
No, it's not.
No.
So we don't know.
No, we don't.
Okay. Good. Wow. Then you'll have to wait until next Sunday.
We'll think of something.
Yeah.
We always do.
All right. Well, if you want to eventually ask questions about whatever that theme is going to be, all you have to do is go to our social media and formats, which are
Facebook,
Dr. DC Podcast.
Twitter,
At Dr. DC.
Gmail,
Dr. DC Podcast at gmail.com.
Instagram.
Dr. DC Podcast.
Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe.
on iTunes.
Google Play. We're on Spotify now.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Did you see that?
Yeah.
You know
mean,
what? Can we actually? Sorry to jump in on you.
No, jump in.
We should do a Spotify playlist of like rad songs that kind of like are in the theme of like action hero. They've been in movies, maybe.
You mean like the wine pairings with comic books?
Yeah.
or
You know what? You're the music guy. We'll team up on it. We'll do it. Sorry.
But also, I want to see what the doctor's picks are for favorite soundtracks.
Oh yeah.
So that's me really good. So yeah, we'll do that if you guys are interested in that. We're gonna do it.
And
anyway,
you know
so I
what?
don't really
Maybe send us some of your favorite songs that
Ooh.
have been in soundtracks for action hero movies for DC, and we'll start up a interns playlist and a learned doctors playlist.
I like it.
I like it. It sounds really good.
So check us out on Spotify because we'll be doing some fun things over there.
And you make sure to go to our website, which is
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
What is it again?
drdcpodcast.com or .ca.
All right.
Yeah.
Hell yeah.
Hell to the yeah.
Okay, I think that's it.
All right. Well, some kind of sign off.
Adios.
Carol Ferris.
Aquaman, all the superheroes. They always fight for what is right. Live with danger and adventure. They are men of might.
Yeah. I was working all weekend.
Everybody's working
For the weekend. Everybody wants a second chance. Oh no.